Okay.
Greetings and welcome to the Housing Assistance Council's public hearing on our Preservation and Reinvestment Initiative for Community Enhancement or PRICE application to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. I am Jonathan Harwitz, Director of Public Policy at the Housing Assistance Council, often referred to as HAC. HAC is a national nonprofit that supports affordable housing efforts throughout rural America. Since 1971, HAC has provided below-market financing for affordable housing and community development, technical assistance and training, research and information, and policy formulation to innovate and scale housing solutions for rural communities. Earlier this year, HUD announced a competitive grant funding program for the preservation and revitalization of manufactured housing and eligible manufactured housing communities. As part of the application, applicants are required to make their application available for public comment and host a public hearing to hear concerns and questions from their constituents. HAC's application is available on our website, and we will also share a link in the chat. Our application will go to HUD, and the department will decide whether to fund all or part of the activities we propose to do. Everything we're talking about today is a proposal. We don't know for sure yet whether we will have this funding. HAC is accepting comments and questions on our application through the close of business Friday, June 28th. You can submit your comments via US mail or by email to price@ruralhome.org. That's price@ruralhome.org. We will also open the floor up for questions following the presentations. If you prefer, you can also post your questions and comments here via the chat function, and we will address them later in the hearing. Of the approximately 6.5 million occupied manufactured homes in the United States, nearly 45%, or 2.9 million, are located in rural places or small towns. Some are in manufactured home communities, but most manufactured homes in the U.S. are located on scattered site lots and parcels. This is particularly true for rural areas. Over 1.9 million, or 30% of manufactured home resident households in the United States are housing cost burdened, meaning they pay more than 30% of their income in rent. Approximately 66% of rural manufactured home loans in 2022 were classified as high cost, which is more than 5 times the level of high cost lending for all homes nationally. Ahead of the July 10th deadline, HAC will be requesting a $75 million Price Main award to provide long-term stability, equity, and affordability for manufactured home residents, specifically in rural America. The Rural Stabilization, Equity, and Affordability for Manufactured Housing, Rural SEAM program will achieve this through 3 key activities: technical assistance, grants and low-rate loans, and land tenure heirs property assistance. For the technical assistance and financing activities under Rural SEAM, eligible applicants will include nonprofit organizations, public housing authorities, and other public entities. For the heirs property assistance, eligible applicants will include legal aid organizations, private legal firms, law schools, land grant extension professionals, and other community-based organizations. HAC works through local community organizations and small units of local government to administer its programs. Individual persons or families are not eligible to apply directly for HAC's Rural SEAM programming. But like all of our work, everything we will do through this program is to help rural Americans. We encourage individuals to advocate for their local housing organization or public housing authority to apply for Rural SEAM program funding. Today, I am joined by 3 colleagues, Shantaria Charleston, Kristen Blum, and Natasha Moody, who will be providing overviews of the 3 activities HAC will conduct with a Price Fund Award. Following their presentations, we will respond to questions and comments. Without further ado, I turn this over to Shantaria Charleston, Director of Training and Technical Assistance at HAC.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you. So good afternoon or good morning, depending upon where you are. As Jonathan said, I am Shantaria Charleston, Director of Training and Technical Assistance here at the Housing Assistance Council, and I have the distinct honor of providing the summary overview of Activity 1, Technical Assistance and Training, under HAC's Rules Theme proposal. And so we understand that technical assistance can be integral in the success of development, which is why HAC is proposing the inclusion of specialized technical assistance and training to nonprofits, housing authorities, and other public entities that either already own manufactured housing communities or who would like to purchase manufactured housing communities as viable housing options for their community. So this engagement of assistance will be aimed at strengthening the capacity for land acquisition, the installment or enhancement of site infrastructure, as well as other necessary upgrades to manufactured homes and communities. So supporting and guiding the process by providing expertise, training, and resources to enhance capacity and knowledge in executing these activities effectively. Oh, someone's advancing slides. Thank you so much. So to impact these areas, the technical assistance and training will focus on technical expertise and training really around specific needs of owning and upgrading manufactured housing communities. And this can include knowledge about land acquisition, site infrastructure, installment and improvement, regulatory compliance, community development, and sustainable practices. We will also focus on financial resources and planning, whereas we're looking at assistance with securing funding sources such as grants, loans, or partnerships to support the acquisition and upgrade of rural manufactured housing communities. This also could include financial planning, budgeting, and financial management training to ensure sustainability and effective use of resources. We will also be looking at assistance with legal and regulatory support, which is really guiding nonprofits through legal and regulatory landscapes related to property ownership, zoning laws and environmental regulations, community development requirements. This really is assistance in navigating permits and approvals and ensuring compliance with local, state, and federal regulations. We'll also be looking at collaboration and networking, facilitating partnerships and collaborations with other nonprofits, government agencies, community organizations, and other stakeholders involved in affordable housing and community development, making sure that these organizations are able to form those critical connections that aid with leveraging resources, sharing best practices, and also building alliances to achieve common goals. We'll also be assisting with community engagement and empowerment, whereby we are empowering or encouraging the empowerment of community residents by involving them in the decision-making process, fostering resident associations or councils, and promoting community organizations and leadership development, engaging and ensuring that the upgrades or improvements reflect the needs and the preferences of the residents. And two, one of my favorite pieces, monitoring, evaluation, and adaptation, which is essentially assistance establishing the mechanisms for monitoring the impact of ownership and the upgrades over time. And this can include, evaluating outcomes such as improved living conditions, increased community cohesion, economic development, and sustainability. And so HAC's program, let's see, going to the next slide. The program will actually span across 6 years with the cycle beginning every 2 years for the technical assistance. The slide that you're seeing shows a quick snapshot which fits neatly into the overall program timeframe, which can be found beginning on page 19 of our draft application. And then finally, for the TA piece, for the application process for technical assistance and training, we will be using an open request for proposal process, which we anticipate issuing within the first 3 months following notification of the awards. And so if you've not already done so, please be sure to sign up for the HAC News. Our RFP announcements will first be published on HAC's websites, HAC News, and through our social media channels. So please be sure to connect to HAC by one of those methods if you've not already done so. With that said, I'll stop there and turn it over to Kristen to cover grants and financing.
Thanks, Ontario. Our activity 2, as Jonathan mentioned earlier, is providing grants and low-cost financing for acquisition of manufactured home communities, infrastructure improvements, and land acquisition to develop new manufactured home communities. As you may know, HAC is already a community development financial institution and affordable housing lender. We've been financing affordable housing for 50 years, providing flexible low-cost capital for support of rural housing development and preservation, both for homeownership and for rental housing. We currently finance all stages of housing development, pre-development, site acquisition, construction and rehab, and some permanent and mini-perm financing. We're excited to have this opportunity with Price to be able to expand our work with manufactured housing communities. We've done some financing of manufactured home communities, but this is an opportunity to increase that work and to provide low-cost loans, but also grant funding to support these communities. Eligible applicants here, like with the TA and other programs, are nonprofit organizations, housing authorities, and other public entities. Eligible uses of our funds we're planning to be acquisition of existing communities, existing manufactured housing communities and parks, land acquisition for development of new communities, and infrastructure improvements such as water and wastewater systems that need updating, lighting, paving, other infrastructure needs of a project. And one of the additional uses of our funds is climate resilient improvements. We want to share a little bit of info on what we mean by that. This is a really unique opportunity for existing manufactured home communities to get grant funding to improve the resilience to these, kind of crazy storms we've been getting and weather. So improve retention of water on site through retention basins and grading to improve storm resilience, addition of renewable energy and improvements to reduce the carbon footprint, but also allow for battery backup systems for resilience for storms, wildfire mitigation, construction of storm shelters if that's something a community needs. Really, all of this will be tailored to a specific community, whatever it needs for what its climate risks are. But it is a unique opportunity to get grant funding to make these kind of upgrades at a cost that low-income communities can afford. Our funding is going to be available for communities serving low-income households, which are households under 80% of area median income. And when we define affordability, we include the cost of the unit itself. So if it's an existing or new manufactured home community, there's the cost of the land and the infrastructure that are paid for with rents for a lot, and then there's the cost of the home itself. And our goal is for people to pay no more than 30% of their income for their land rent and their housing unit cost itself. All of our projects will have an affordability restriction of at least 15 years, and the duration will be based on the amount and type of funding, the amount of the investment we're making in any particular development, and also whether it's a loan or a grant. And so whether somebody requests a loan or a grant, it's going to be up to the applicant, but we're going to look a little bit at the ability to repay. If something really needs to be a grant, if we get enough funding through this program, we'll be able to do that, provide it as a grant. And our investments, our maximum affordability period is anticipated to be 30 years for investments over $15,000 per lot or home. Our application process is going to be very similar to what Terry mentioned. I didn't want to show the detailed timeline again, but it's likely to be very similar. We're planning to award these funds through an RFP process, with the first round beginning, within a few months of the Price award, and we'll continue to have annual rounds until the funds are fully deployed. So it could be that there's enough demand that the funds get deployed within a year or two, because we want to get these funds out the door and working in communities as fast as possible and as fast as HUD will allow. If you want to hear about how to apply, as Terry mentioned, sign up for our HAC news and updates so that you can hear about our funds available in our RFPs. And now I'm going to turn it over to Natasha, who's going to talk about our third activity.
Thank you, Kristen. Hello, everyone. My name is Natasha Moody. I'm a research associate here at HAC, and I'll provide an overview of our third proposed activity focused on title resolution and converting manufactured homes to real property. In Activity 3, HAC proposes providing grants to legal service providers and community-based organizations supporting low and moderate income rural manufactured homeowners seeking to resolve title issues and convert their properties from personal property to real property. The transfer of property has been a primary means of wealth generation. However, title issues like heirs property present barriers to accessing the equity in the property and having full agency as a homeowner. And so I'd like to start with an overview of heirs property, as we may all have differing levels of exposure to this issue. Heirs property is traditionally created when a property owner dies without a will or another form of estate planning. The property is transferred into state, meaning that they have shared interest in the property, but no one person has clear ownership. And as each generation passes on that inheritance, the title becomes more and more tangled. Sometimes property owners do have estate planning, but they chose to leave the property to multiple descendants. And for any number of reasons, the heirs of that property did not complete the formal title transfer, which in many states is the probate process. And the issue of heirs property is just one product of historic and systemic exclusion, particularly for Black residents and other residents of color who were barred from participating in formal legal systems. And so some families developed their own methods and agreements for transferring property and passed that knowledge down through generations. However, today, that generational knowledge may not align with the necessary formal legal processes. And so that clear title is needed for market participation, to sell the home if the family desires at market rate, to be able to have access to the housing finance systems for loans or mortgages, including for real property like when manufactured housing is titled as real property, to be able to leverage the equity in the home for the family's benefits. And so not having a clear title really presents a lot of barriers. And so a lot of times when heirs property owners we see cannot access housing finance monies due to lack of clear title. In many rural communities, we see that the only housing structure available to the families is to purchase manufactured housing as personal property. However, clear title is needed to title manufactured homes as real property in many states. And when that manufactured house is classified as real property, owners have more opportunities for financing, lower rate mortgage products, equitable taxation and tax exemptions, and just better options for resale and protections if in the event of a foreclosure. So clear title is also required for many forms of insurance and to access monies for disaster recovery or rehabilitation. And so it's important to be able to provide support to address the issues of heirs property and not having clear title, because that also decreases vulnerability for property loss through forced sales from nefarious actors seeking to exploit ways to acquire land at low cost. So HAC, in collaboration with Fannie Mae, conservatively estimated that over $32 billion in equity is inaccessible due to title issues. And so owners of manufactured homes without clear title face many barriers that may impact their agency as property owners and their opportunity for wealth generation. And the process of resolving title issues requires access to legal services. However, legal services are often inaccessible to rural low-income residents. Over 40% of counties has less than one attorney per 1,000 residents. And over 194 counties, mostly rural, are classified as legal deserts, which means they have much difficulty, if at all, are able to access legal services. When folks can access legal services, they can be very costly, with attorney fees ranging from $200 to up to $500 per hour. And even with access to legal aid, which is the state-free legal services, court fees and filing fees can still be costly and be a barrier for resolving title issues. Currently, there is no structure for financial support for residents seeking to clear title for residential properties. So to address that need, HAC is proposing the distribution of rural SEAM funding as grants to legal service providers and community-based organizations to assist low and moderate income manufactured homeowners with clearing title and converting their property to real property. HAC proposes 3 two-year cycles of grant funding distribution. At the beginning of each cycle, HAC will release a request for proposal for grant funding to expand legal services and outreach to rural areas, and to be able to cover the legal, court, and filing costs for clients in need. Grants will be distributed to trusted professionals trained in estate planning, probate proceedings, and mediation, including legal aid firms, private legal firms, law schools, HBCU law schools, land-grant university extension professionals, and other community-based organizations. And the activities may include increasing capacity and expanding services to rural residents and covering the needed costs to resolve those issues to clear title and be able to transfer the manufactured housing title from personal property to real property. Similar to other activities, the request for proposal process will be announced via the HAC News, and just providing financial support for clearing titles and transferring the manufactured home title from personal property to real property will assist with the preservation of land and be able to have more easier access to generate wealth for property owners. And it will also provide much needed protections and equitable financing and taxation for rural manufactured homeowners. So thank you very much. I will turn it back over to Jonathan.
Sorry.
Thank you, Shantaria, Kristen, and Natasha. We will now respond to questions and comments. Please raise your hand and we'll call on you. You can also post your questions and comments here via the chat function and we will read them out and respond. Earl Piper.
Good morning. Thank you for that presentation. In defining manufactured home as replacement units, are we just limited to actual manufactured homes, or is modular housing included in that in the definition of manufactured housing?
Kristen, do you want to respond?
It's my understanding that modular housing is included, as long as it's built off-site and transported to the property.
Thank you.
John David.
And John, can you let us know your organization and where you're from? You're muted though.
Okay, all right. My name is John David. I'm with the Southern Appalachian Labor School in West Virginia. I had heard a rumor that Clayton Manufactured Homes is a sponsor of this or is connected with this program in some capacity. And very close to us, within 10 miles, there is a major Clayton manufactured home distribution facility, sales office. Does Clayton have anything to do with this at all?
I can give an initial response, which is to say that this is a federal funding program. The funding was.
I'm aware of that. I'm aware of that. I just thought that Clayton was, someone said was part of the whole package that was helping with this. If it's not the case, never mind.
This is Lance George with the Housing Assistance Council. I think this discussion today is about the Housing Assistance Council application. And I think I can unequivocally say that Clayton Homes has no involvement in our application. Thank you.
Thank you, Lance. McLean Britt, and if you could also just let us know your organization, that would be.
Yes, hi, absolutely. My name is Britt McLean. I work for Oregon Housing and Community Services. We are also applying for the grant for just Oregon. And one thing I was just curious about, and you certainly don't have to go into detail if you prefer not to, but we're just curious how other folks are handling the environmental review requirements associated with CDBG and the cross-cutting requirements. Do you believe you're activities have to put you in a position to require you to grapple with those environmental review requirements, or maybe your activities are sort of they would sort of take place before the need for those reviews, and maybe those would be on a separate entity. Maybe your grantees are the ones who would have to deal with those environmental review requirements.
Kristen?
I can only speak to the project funding. We're anticipating that the projects will either need an environmental review or be categorically excluded by the categories that are eligible for that. But that's on the project funding. I haven't thought about it for the others.
Thank you so much.
Usually
That's
what
really
we do
helpful.
for SHOP, like with a different funding source we have from HUD that we pass through, is it's usually the subawardee's responsibility to engage with their responsible entity and take care of the environmental review.
That makes total sense. Thank you.
The others?
We're good. Yeah, should say no other questions.
Great. If that's all the questions that we have for today, we appreciate you taking the time to join us and providing questions and comments that will help to strengthen our proposal. If you have additional thoughts or comments, please send them via email to price@ruralhome.org. Again, that's price@ruralhome.org before midnight Eastern time on Friday, June 28th. Thank you and have a great rest of the afternoon.